Hello, thanks for coming back. This is now the third of 5 videos, so you're nearly halfway there. And each one of the videos tries to be quite short to keep you going and to see what you can do next. You can pause them at any time, you can go back and replay them and get some of the ideas. I don't expect every idea to be useful in your business, but I do expect that some of them are sufficiently cost effective that you could say, I could have a go at this. So what we're looking at right now is how do you improve customer satisfaction through sustainability marketing and communication? And there are many, many ways in which you can do this. What I'm trying to do now is share 5 different ideas on how you can do that I think you will find very accessible for your business and that you can do without spending too much time. The first idea really has to be to make customers feel good. We all know you're doing a lot of things already to be sustainable, and many of those things you're just not communicating them right now. The business that I got this idea from is based in Northern Ireland, and they decided that they had to actually add value to their breakfast offer. So they created a booklet that says, and who made my breakfast today? And in this booklet, when you open it, you find always a photo on the left-hand side and then some text on the right-hand side. And you find this booklet at your breakfast table. And what they did is essentially they did some storytelling. They put there some stories about each one of the key providers they're using. Not every provider, because some of them they change them. So they did this only for the providers that are most loyal to them, and they've had a really long working relationship with them. And this really helped a lot, because what it did is, without asking the customer, please do something different, change your behavior in any way, you actually reinforce the image in the customer's mind that this breakfast is really special. Just look at this lady in this photo here. It's fantastic, and she's the provider of the yogurts that we make in this area. She actually makes them, okay? She doesn't just bring them to the site. But what's great about this is that essentially customers end up eating through their 5 senses, okay? You're not just working with your taste buds, but actually you're using your imagination to feel just how good that product is. And what we've seen as a result of this is this property now has higher customer satisfaction ratings in TripAdvisor, in Booking.com, and so on. And what we always know is that higher satisfaction ratings essentially increase the likelihood of customers booking and repeating and encouraging others. So you don't increase the number of bookings because you are sustainable. You increase the number of bookings because sustainability was communicated in a way that resonated with customers, and then the customers basically rated you as being of higher quality. And it is that rating of higher quality that drove other customers to come back and book with you. Equally, we have to use much more appealing language. And very often, when you guys talk about sustainability, it's just a bit dry, it's a bit boring. Look at Featherdown, for example. It's a fantastic organization in the UK that sells beautiful glamping. Okay, and glamping is something that's become so fashionable in the last 5-10 years, and people are willing to pay quite a bit of money for it. Look at the photo here on the top right hand side. I'm not even telling you that you're buying the property, the accommodation. What you're buying is the experience where your kids will be able to sleep so happily after a day outdoors in nature. That child looks wholesome, right? We're looking for that message that sustainability sense means, re-engaging with nature, discovering things you cannot possibly see in the city. So the message here is the best loved family holidays in the land. They've understood really well that wholesomeness is really key to how you want to bring up your children. And as a result of this, we're able to sell holidays where sustainability is embedded within that language of enjoyment. Okay, so you have to first have these appealing messages, and then of course you need to have the facts to back it up. You don't just sell them the story and then there's no evidence behind it. But equally, you don't do it the other way around. So you have to work on that, emotional storytelling. And I've added here in my notes the bird menu just to remind you of one of the case studies I work with a company. Essentially, this was for a cafe. They had a terrace, they had a food menu, they had a drinks menu, and I created for them a bird menu. Why? Because they had some bird feeders there. And I could see that customers were identifying birds in the bird feeders they had never seen before. And when I say identifying, they saw that those birds looked different. And then when we created the bird menu, we showed that those were siskins or bullfinches or goldfinches or starlings or nuthatch, birds I had never seen before, certainly not in their own gardens. but there was a certain sense of enjoyment amongst those customers. And by presenting it like a bird menu, essentially we were playing with them. Okay, you weren't buying the birds, you weren't choosing the bird, but it gave something to those customers. They said, great, this is really exciting, this is different. So what we achieve here is that customers spend longer at the cafe and they end up ordering more things at the cafe because they were enjoying watching those birds. We also find ways of telling the customers what's in it for them. And very often you need to do this in a very clear, direct way. Now remember, sustainable sounds worthy. If I said to you, come to my house, we're going to have sustainable dinner, most of you would say, I have no idea what you're going to sell me. So the idea here is, let's turn it around and use words that mean something to customers. If I said to you, we're going to eat fresh food, we're going to use trustworthy food, we're going to use ingredients that are much more enjoyable, much more of the moment, seasonal, all those things, you'll be able to say, I still don't know what I'm going to eat necessarily, but I know it's going to be good and it's going to be exciting and it's going to be different. So look at the two dishes that you got on the bottom left hand side here. They're both vegan. Now for most people, eating vegan is like, whoa, I'll do this in January as a diet. The rest of the year, it sounds like suffering. Okay, and obviously the percentage of people eating vegan food is increasing, but very often we have to find ways of selling it in a much more visual way. We've seen that in restaurants outside veganery, it's very difficult to sell vegan food at the moment, and many customers still think, I will be good when I'm at home, but when I go out, I want to indulge. I want to have a really good time. And they just don't see vegan food necessarily doing this. So we have to find other ways of saying what's good for you other than you'll be wholesome. Also, I've got an example for you in relation to kitchen waste. One of the properties I visited, they were essentially almost bragging of the fact that they had reduced by X number of tons the amount of kitchen waste that went to landfilling, and now they were treating it in their own garden. For many customers, essentially, they thought, the garden is going to be a dump. This doesn't sound really good. So what we did instead is we created new messages that talk about how the flowers and the plants in their garden look much more beautiful and lush than they would normally look otherwise. And the secret was 6 tons of compost. Now, anybody who understands where compost comes from, they'll know it's a result of, essentially kitchen waste. But the moment when you call it compost, it sounds much more positive, right? Don't talk about the problem, talk about the solution, talk about what you've done with it. And there is no customer that won't be excited about the idea of more beautiful flowers in your garden. The same happened when it came to roof insulation. I remember a property that I visited and they talked about how customers had complained about being cold in the bedrooms, and now they'd insulated the roof and therefore customers could be happier. The message was a bit better, but essentially it was along those lines. And I still thought, no, that doesn't sound very good. I think I'm going to be sleeping with my jacket on. What we found is, actually, when I asked the property, what they insulated the roof with was sheep's wool. And not just any sheep, it was sheep from their own property. This was a rural tourism business, a bed and breakfast. And so I went back to the bedroom and I changed the message for them. And now the message says, our 300 sheep gave up their winter woolly coat to keep you warm at night, sleep tight. And then underneath it explained what we'd done with that winter wool. And again, use language along those lines where you're not asking the customers to change their behavior, or if you're asking them to change their behavior, you really have to offer them something in return. There's more examples about showers and how if you tell people they're going to have showers, based on heating the water from solar panels, you may find that winter demand goes down because people think you may not be able to heat it so well, or customers basically believing that if you say that there's no need for air conditioning, they'll think, oh, okay, well, maybe I'm going to be overly warm in the summer, and so on and so forth. So you really have to tell the customers what the benefit is for them. And provide rewards. This is another event that we looked at, and we actually found that if you give people rewards, for example, if you say, look, for every 10 bottles you bring back, we'll give you a free drink. What we found is that customers were getting quite creative about collecting bottles, bring them back to you, and essentially you were saving from unsightly waste at the property, as well as from having to pay wages for people that otherwise would go around collecting some of that waste. Try to also find ways of making it easy for customers to do things. And this is an example that comes from a half marathon that happens every year just outside Barcelona in Spain. What we see here is that when we used to just say to customers, please, throw the bottles in the bins. Customers are running, they're going fast. They go past the water station, they collect the water, they drink a little bit, but then they end up throwing it on the floor. What we had to do here instead to change customers' behavior was to put basketball hoops on top of the bins. And essentially we did not just with one side, but actually two sides, a 90-degree angle, so it would be much, much easier to score, and then a hoop on top of it. And what we saw is that customers were much more enthused by the idea, and it gave them a certain boost also by saying, okay, I'm going to throw it there, I'm going to run faster, I'm going to make this work for me. Okay, so find a way in which you can make it easy for customers to do the sustainability action rather than making it sound like it's something that is a big effort. And do help customers make decisions. I know this example comes from Nepal, so it's different to what you're going to come across, but I'm giving it to you so you can think about how you can apply it to your own context. This comes from a tour operator that was saying to customers, oh, I would really recommend that you take a heat-proof metal water bottle when you're trekking, because in the evening we can heat some of the water, in our stoves, and then you fill it up, and then at night you can have a hot water bottle from your metal waterproof bottle, so you can stay warm in your sleeping bag. Remember, this is in Nepal, we're looking at Himalayas, high altitude. And then they're saying, and then during the day, essentially, you've got purified water. Why did we do this? It's not because we want people to stay warm at night. It is, but it isn't. But mostly it's because during the day, if people are carrying their own purified water, the Sherpas need to bring less water and fewer plastic bottles into the Himalayas and carrying it in their own bag. Essentially, we can find snow nearby, we can collect it, we can purify it, it's all good. So remember that there will be different information you can provide to customers to be sustainable before the booking, before they purchase it, or after the booking but before they arrived, or at the beginning of the tour, or things they need to know during the tour. It links a little bit to something we talked about in the very first video of the 3 you've watched so far. Help customers make decisions in a timely way.